It's transfer silly season, so I figured I'd bring you a bonus edition of the pod. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner with me, Harry Symeou. Let's get into it. Hey everybody, how are we doing? Welcome to a bonus edition of the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast, coming to you live on this Tuesday afternoon / evening. I guess it's 5:30. It's about dinner time, isn't it? I did want to come on because I wanted to talk about the Zubimendi stuff. Martin Zubimendi has been speaking to some Spanish media outlets, and let's just say that some of the comments he has made have caused some concern among the Arsenal faithful. People are looking into his comments, reading into his comments, and starting to wonder if Arsenal are actually close at all to signing Martin Zubimendi. Now, those who have reported they've gone quite big on it, and I've got no reason to believe that they're not right, and no reason to believe that they don't know what they're talking about. So I'm not going to massively overreact to this, but I do think he made some comments that are really worthwhile discussing. So we're going to do that. If you can hear my dog outside, I apologize. Got a husky, and she's decided that now, while we're live, is the time to howl for no real apparent reason. Anyway, but rather than fluff the rest of the pod up with chat about Sesko, which we've done a million times, and chat about Victor Gyökeres, which again, we've done a million times, or chat about Leroy Sané or anything like that, things we've already covered, I figured I'd pick a couple of stories from the wider footballing world that I think are quite interesting and that I quite fancy discussing. So on this episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner, of course, we're going to talk Arsenal, but we're also going to touch on some of the other big news as well. And I think if you guys like it and it's okay with you, it's probably something I'm going to do a lot more of over the course of the summer, rather than going over the same stuff, rather than, talking about things so much that we end up driving ourselves crazy about them and coming to all sorts of different conclusions because we're just too involved. I figured we'd take a step back and instead we'll look at the wider world. And I think that gives us a good idea of what's going on in the market, who's available, what Arsenal could be doing, etc., etc. So that's what we're going to do on this episode. We're going to start off elsewhere. We're going to come back to the Zubimendi stuff very, very shortly. But don't go anywhere. I promise I'll keep these short, I'll keep these sweet, and we'll keep them interesting. Okay, so I want to begin by talking about Chelsea, who have apparently opened talks with AC Milan over the potential signing of Mike Maignan. Now, I think Maignan is one of Europe's top goalkeepers. He's a fine shot stopper, really, really good keeper, really competent keeper. And he's also very, very good with his feet, which I think is what Enzo Maresca is looking for. Now, it's been clear for a while, I think, that Chelsea really do need a top level goalkeeper. And in Mike Maignan, I think they've probably found him. I think he's gone under the radar a little bit recently because AC Milan are not the powerhouse of European football that they once were. But also add into that, he's 29 years old right now. He's not this young up and coming goalkeeper anymore. It just feels like some of the coverage around him has just faded a little bit in terms of its intensity. But this was reported earlier today by Sky Sports News' Kaveh Solokul. What has he had to say? Chelsea are in talks to sign AC Milan goalkeeper Mike Maignan. The French international's contract at San Siro expires next summer. There is a good chance a move to Stamford Bridge happens for the 29-year-old. So to give you the kind of Serie A Italian football perspective on this, Mike Maignan has not agreed to sign on at AC Milan. And who can blame him? They're in a really bad place at the moment. There's no European football for them next season, which is not something that you associate with a club like AC Milan. They should be playing in Europe's premier competition, let alone not being in Europe at all. They're not in the Conference League. They're not in the Europa League. So you can understand why he's unwilling, as a top-level French international goalkeeper, he's unwilling to put his pen to paper and commit his longer-term future to the club. Now, this puts AC Milan in a really awkward and difficult situation because they know he's an asset. They know he's a player that they could potentially get a good fee for. But for all the time they allow this to rumble on, and for the longer his contract rolls and the lesser time it has remaining on it, the lesser value they're going to get for the goalkeeper. So you can understand why they are keen to open or to entertain, I should say, these talks with Chelsea, who are clearly quite interested in the player. Sky Sports go on to say that the contract situation has alerted Chelsea to the possibility of securing a deal, and there is a good chance that his move to West London happens. The 29-year-old's potential arrival at Stamford Bridge would mean yet another shake-up in the goalkeeping department. Chelsea have 5 goalkeepers on their books already. The problem is none of them are at the level required, really. Robert Sanchez, not good enough, I don't think. Philip Jorgensen, unsure about. Petrovic, at one time, looked like he could be the guy, but I don't think he is. Mike Penders, and obviously Kepa Arrizabalaga has been on loan at Bournemouth for all of last season. So Maignan's arrival would certainly be a welcome one. And I think if you talk to Chelsea fans, and I do talk to a fair few Chelsea fans, particularly in my work, I work a lot with Kwaku Afari, as you guys will know, they've been crying out for a goalkeeper. The question is Maignan the one that they've been eyeing up and that they're wanting? I'm sure it's a signing that Chelsea fans all over the world will be welcoming if the Blues can get it over the line. Okay, another big story today that completely stunned me. I've got to be honest. Simone Inzaghi is leaving Inter. Now, this has been on the cards for a fair bit, right? We've known for a good few weeks that there were going to be some sort of talks at the end of the campaign between the now former Inter boss. I don't know if he's officially left, but he will be the former Inter boss sooner rather than later. We knew that he was going to have talks with the club and there was going to be a discussion around his future. They were right to keep it all under wraps and to not, make anything public ahead of a huge game, the UEFA Champions League final. But let's be honest, Inter were humiliated by a really, really good Paris Saint-Germain side. I don't think that's had any bearing in Simone Inzaghi's decision. My understanding of it all is that Inter would have preferred to keep him. But in came the Saudis. They came in with a massive offer, an offer that is said to include a net salary of $25 million per season. How can you turn that down? I mean, when I think about it that way, I'm like sitting there and I'm going, look, fair play to the guy. If someone waved $25 million in my face, I'd find it very, very difficult to say no. And that would be the case for all of us. But there's also a part of me that's disappointed in Simone Inzaghi because it feels like his work at the real top end of football with Europe's elite is not done yet. He's won Serie A titles. He's won the Coppa Italia. He's won Italian Super Cups. He's been to 2 UEFA Champions League finals. He's a manager of the highest order. He's flexible in his tactics. He's built a really functional side out of a group of players that in a lot of cases would be viewed maybe as misfits, players that went to the Premier League in a lot of cases, like, someone like Henrik Mkhitaryan, where it didn't really work out. He's come alive at Inter. He's doing a fantastic job. You think about Acerbi, the stage in his career that he's at. I know he wasn't great in the Champions League final, but Inzaghi and Inter have managed to get so much out of him and extract so much from him. I just really do believe that Simone Inzaghi is a top manager. And whenever I see top managers making moves like this at this stage in their careers, I find it, on the one hand, understandable because of the money that's being waved about, but at the same time, disappointing because I think he's got so much more to offer. He will be the Al Hilal manager, and I think they're hoping to get that done before the Club World Cup so that he can go and take up the reins there. This is the description of it on goal.com. Serie A giants Inter have confirmed the exit of manager Inzaghi, who will soon join Saudi outfit Al Hilal before the start of the Club World Cup, according to Fabrizio Romano. The former Lazio striker dodged questions about his future in the build-up to Saturday's Champions League final in the wake of their devastating 5-0 loss to PSG. The 49-year-old has left his post at San Siro for a new role. The bigger picture, the former Italy international took charge of Inter in 2021, led them to a Serie A title, 2 Coppa Italia trophies, and 3 Supercoppa Italiana successes. But this past season was one of disappointment as they were pipped to the championship by Antonio Conte's Napoli and embarrassed by PSG on Saturday night. Now he'll be tasked with getting the best out of stars like Ruben Neves, Alexander Mitrovic, and Joao Cancelo for the Club World Cup, though more fresh faces could yet arrive over the course of the summer. So, like, I know when you say a top manager or a top player is going to Saudi, you just think money, 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 money. And I'm sure that is the main driver here. But then you think about that, what I've just read, and you think, well, Ruben Neves is there. Alexander Mitrovic is there. Joao Cancelo is there, all at that club. And I expect Al Hilal, by the way, to bring in more players over the course of the summer. But it just goes to show you that so many have been tempted by these crazy offers. And it feels like the Saudi Pro League are making another big push. It just felt like after that initial push where they tried to recruit really, really hard, that they'd maybe just scaled it back a little bit, only for them to go massive again now, which is unsettling a lot of people, a lot of players, and a lot of football clubs. It's really, really interesting. Really, really interesting. But yeah, mixed feelings on this one. I know I shouldn't really care as an Arsenal fan, but as someone with a real affection and affiliation with Italian football, I find this a bitter pill to swallow. For a long time, I've talked up Serie A and I've told people that, you know, it's a much better league than people give it credit for. And I think we've seen that in the European competitions. And I think we've seen that in terms of, you know, when those teams have been pitted against some of the very best. They are competitive. It is a strong league. But when stuff like this happens, it's very, very difficult, isn't it, to continue making the case that Serie A is that strong, because the Saudis, I know they could do it to anyone because they've got the money, but they're coming in and plucking away the best talent, not just players, but managers and coaches here as well, which is, for me, a big worry. Look, we're going to take a really short pause. When we come back, we're going to talk Martin Zubimendi. What has he been saying that has caused such a stir among the Arsenal fan base? We'll get into that right after this.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou. Like and subscribe. Okay. Let's turn our attention then to some comments that Martin Zubimendi made while on international duty with Spain that have caused quite a stir. Now, Martin Zubimendi has insisted he does not know how the summer will end, despite widespread reports that he will sign for Arsenal. The Spanish international also waxed lyrical about newly appointed Real Madrid boss Xabi Alonso amid claims that Los Blancos could try and hijack his move to North London. Zubimendi and Spain will face France on Thursday night in the Nations League semi-finals. The 26-year-old is believed to have agreed to join Arsenal in a £51 million deal, and everything is in place pending the completion of a medical. But he appeared to cast doubt on the move during a Spanish press conference on Tuesday, saying, of course, there are options, but it's true that it seems like it's going to be a different, long summer, and I don't know how it will end. Thinking about it right now is not my top priority. I'm here with the national team, which I think is already quite demanding. And if I have to say something, then I will. Basque news outlet Noticias de Guipúzcoa, probably said that terribly, reported that Zubimendi was visibly uncomfortable when asked about Alonso and the prospect of him calling about a move to the Bernabeu. Alonso managed Zubimendi at Real Sociedad's B team, and the midfielder swiftly jumped up to the senior side. He said, I've always said that Xabi Alonso was my idol, and that for me, it was lucky that he was able to coach me in the reserve team in a really important year. The following year, I was already in the first team, and well, I don't like to talk about those hypotheses of Real Madrid calling. I prefer to talk about the present, because I also think that it would be disrespectful to answer from the national team training camp and before facing such an important competition. It's understood that Sociedad would prefer to delay signing off on Zubimendi's move to Arsenal until July for accounting purposes, but that could leave the door ajar for Real Madrid to launch an audacious hijack for the player who fits the right profile to replace club legend Luka Modric, who is leaving this summer. So look, make of that what you will. I think that I think that Martin Zubimendi comes across as the type of guy that is really kind of big on the whole morals thing and really, really big on respect. And if you're really, really big on respect, you're going to do everything within your power to talk down leaving your club before it's actually done. Remember, this is a guy that has a really kind of long-standing and deep, meaningful relationship with Real Sociedad. He has snubbed offers from other big clubs in the past to remain there. It could be a case that Martin Zubimendi just does not want to give anything away at the moment. Am I starting to think that some of the reports claiming we've done everything and all that remains is a medical? There's a part of me that thinks that maybe those reports are a little bit premature, although I don't know that. It's just what my gut tells me. It's just based on what Martin Zubimendi is saying here. There was another bit that wasn't included in that article where he said, I posted pictures on a Spanish beach while rumors said I'm in London doing medical exams for Arsenal. Yes, I did that to make it clear that those rumors were not true. Okay, so he's not ruled out the possibility of a medical coming up very soon, but he's just making the point that that hasn't already happened yet. And to be fair, none of the reporting says it has. The reporting that we've been reading and responding to and reacting to over the last few days says that the agreement's in place and all that's remaining is to arrange and then for the player to participate in that medical. But yeah, I think when you read these comments, it's understandable why you might press the panic button. I can understand why a lot of Arsenal fans would read those comments, would read the quotes from all the aggregators on X and go, uh-oh, we've got a problem here. I'm not massively worried by what Martin Zubimendi has said. I still think that we are going to end up with him coming in. I still think we are going to end up landing the player. And I think it's a signing that, I've got to be honest, at the beginning, I wasn't hugely on board with. I still have my concerns about it. But the more I think about it, the more I think it probably is a good idea. And I'm open-minded about the player coming in order to help us in that midfield area. I think it's going to be key, as I've said before, though, that we keep a hold of Thomas Partey so that Martin Zubimendi has that ability to grow into the role without that huge pressure that comes with being our only real number 6. Because it's clear, I think, that Declan Rice has moved on into that 8 role, and that's probably where he's going to play the majority of his football moving forward, I would guess. And I would imagine, based on the impact he had in the second half of the season. I'm just wheezing a little bit. Apologies. The hay fever's really got to me this afternoon. And I can imagine it's coming through on the microphone. So I apologize about that. I'm going to take a really, really, really brief pause just so I can have a little cough off mic. And then we will get back to chatting Martin Zubimendi. And I want to get your thoughts and comments from the live chat. Don't go anywhere.
You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner. Like and subscribe.
That's right. You're listening to the Chronicles of a Gooner podcast with me, Harry Symeou. Like and subscribe. Let me just take in a sip of water. Lovely stuff. Okay, let's get some of your thoughts and comments from the live chat with regards to this then. Lots of you saying Partey is still a better 6. Christopher Chan says quit playing Rice as an 8. Ruak says it's PR. Mode says Zubimendi is kind of like dismissing the reports rather than avoiding or respecting his current club. Sick and tired of this. If he is not coming or still not sure if he wants to come, we should move on. This is interesting because I didn't really take it like that. He didn't rule anything out. He didn't say, I'm not leaving Real Sociedad, or categorically everything that's being said about Arsenal is nonsense. He didn't say that. But he said, it's a long summer. I don't know what the outcome will look like. Unless the deal is signed, sealed, delivered, and every facet of it is taken care of, he's right to steer clear of giving too much away. But my worry about Zubimendi and this whole thing is not necessarily born out of these comments, but it's a worry that exists on the premise of what he did last year, where it looked, for all intents and purposes, that he was heading to Anfield, only for him to decide really late on and make a huge U-turn and go, no, actually, I want to stay at Real Sociedad. So because I've got that in the back of my mind, comments like this probably bother me a little bit more than they should, or get to me a little bit more than they should. Actually, when you break it down, and we can do that again, right? He said in a quote that wasn't picked up in this article that he posted pictures of him being on a Spanish beach to prove to people that he wasn't undergoing the medical at the time, which was being reported by some. But look, what does he actually say? He says, of course, there are options. Doesn't say I'm not going to Arsenal, but it's true that it seems like it's going to be a different and long summer. Different summer because he's probably going to leave. Long summer, suggesting that things aren't done yet. And I don't know how it will end. It's the right thing to say. You don't know where you're going to go. You don't know that it's done, and you certainly don't want to tempt fate or say anything like that. Thinking about it right now is not my top priority. I'm here with the national team, which I think is already quite demanding. And if I have to say something, then I will. He's right to make the point that, you know, he is focused on the international game that is in front of him. That's what any professional would say. But this bit is quite interesting. A Basque news outlet reported that Zubimendi was visibly uncomfortable when asked about Alonso and the prospect of him calling about a move to the Bernabeu. The only club, in my opinion, that could take him away from us is Real Madrid. The question is, are Real Madrid ready and really wanting to execute that deal? Because if they did, if they really wanted Martin Zubimendi, I think they would have done it much earlier. And I don't think we'd even be in a position where the feeling is that we're really close. I think Real Madrid could gazump us financially. And obviously, being a Spanish player based in Spain, the dream for a lot of those guys growing up is to play for Real Madrid. So it'd be very, very difficult to turn his head back towards North London if that was the case. But if Real Madrid's interest was genuine, would they have made stronger moves by now? I don't know. You just don't know, do you? You just don't know. What else have we got? Christoph says, I'm just tired of this moment by moment transfer news. In every time of business, there's ups and downs in negotiations. I agree. But there's no football on, so what the hell would we talk about? Sadiq says, I think Zubimendi is indeed being respectful to Real Sociedad, but we cannot trust him fully since we know what happened with Liverpool. We need a backup plan. Rumble says, you always seem to be ill, mate. Rest up during the summer break. I'm not ill. I've got really, really bad hay fever. And normally I contact my doctor and I get prescribed tablets because I find it really difficult to do my job when I'm wheezing and coughing and sneezing all the time. This year, I was unaffected right at the beginning of the kind of hay fever season. And I thought, maybe I'm going to get away with it this year. So I didn't start taking the tablets and I didn't start building them up in my system stupidly. And now I'm paying the price for it. What else have we got in the live chat? Junior says, I know it's the second or third day of the transfer window, but I've got a bad feeling. Too many lawyers, not enough football men. Dan says, what Zubimendi said was extremely taken out of context, and you can expect that from Spanish journalists. The deal is already done, in which case there's nothing to worry about. Pete says, keep hearing different things. Some say it'll be done in a few weeks. Others say July. Well, July is in a few weeks, to be fair. Bush D says, too many people panic and enter a spiral of negativity at the drop of one report. Yeah, that happens, man. That happens. Samus says, Zubi news isn't worrying me a lot. Normal for a player to be vague on any transfer news surrounding them. Wesbird says, I'm quite calm about the transfer window, and the time to be critical is when the new season starts and we haven't done anything of value. But until then, let's keep everything crossed. Yeah, I'm calm about it too. I'm not massively stressed about it. I got to be honest, when I first came across these comments, I hadn't seen the direct quotes. What I'd seen was lots of headlines. Martin Zubimendi casts doubt over Arsenal move. Like you see it here on this piece that I've selected from the Express. Literally, that's what they've gone with. Martin Zubimendi casts doubt on Arsenal transfer with new comments on club future. it's designed to get clicks. It's designed to get you engaged. It's designed to make you click on the article and go hunting through it to try and find the nugget of information that you're after. But long story short on this one, Martin Zubimendi didn't give anything away. He didn't rule anything out either. And he certainly didn't drop any hints. So I'd say that as far as we're concerned, the state of play around our pursuit of Martin Zubimendi remains the same until we hear something concrete that suggests otherwise. And right now, I don't think we need to worry or panic too much. But yeah, I appreciate a bit strange when you first read it and probably takes people aback a little bit. Let's take a couple more of your comments before I sign out. What else have we got? Thanks, Wesbird, for your kind comment. Marcella says we would definitely appreciate his kind of respect when he's finally a gunner. He's always struck me, and I said this quite early on in the Zubimendi chat that we're doing this evening. I feel like he is that guy that wants to be morally correct all the time, the guy that wants to be respectful all the time. But in a way, I think that's probably a big part of what Mikel Arteta likes about him and why Arsenal believe he's the right character. Remember as well, at Arsenal Football Club, we've got players that would have easily been able to kind of speak with him, but also have an influence. You know, you think about Mikel Merino, whom he worked so well with in that midfield together at Arsenal, probably waxing lyrical about what life at Arsenal is like. You know, we've got Kieran Tierney spent some time at Real Sociedad. I'm sure there's a contact there. I'm not saying they're best mates, but there'll be something, won't they? Martin Odegaard spent some time there in the past as well. So, and he's got fellow Spanish international teammates that he can talk to and get a feel for what Arsenal Football Club is all about via. So I think I'm pretty confident that we still get this deal done. But I wanted to highlight these comments and wanted to go through them and break them down because I think it's necessary, because often comments can be taken out of context. Comments can be read off and reeled off in isolation without the full story alongside them. And you can end up going into a bit of a panic and a bit of a frenzy, quite frankly, over nothing. So, that's that. Martin Zubimendi cast out on Arsenal transfer with new comments on club future. Really? I'm not so sure. But hey, not surprised to see a newspaper go with that type of headline. Anyway, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you all so much for joining me on this bonus episode of the Chronicles of a Gooner. Really appreciate the love and support as always. And I'll see you all very soon on another episode. Until then, take care of yourselves. Have a wonderful day. Goodbye.